Hello and welcome, connoisseurs of fine common cardboard, to today's live stream and to this Let's Build for Legate Lanius Caesar's Ace, or Kaiser's Ace, as is stated in the Fallout New Vegas game. My name's Papa Popper. Today we're going to be looking at competitive Popper Commander and a new Rakdos Commander that I believe is going to be excellent in the control archetype in this format. So, without much ado, we're going to get started and talk a little bit about the commander. So we have Legate Lanius, Kaiser's Ace. He does say Kaiser in the video game if you've played Fallout before. So we'll just go with that, Kaiser's Ace. And the first thing we're going to look at is that Kaiser is indeed a 4-mana legendary creature human soldier with the ability Decimate, which is just so flavorful. When he enters the battlefield, each opponent is going to sacrifice a creature, a 10th of the creatures they control rounded up, which means that when there's one creature in play for a player, they're going to sacrifice one creature. If there are 11 creatures in play, you're going to sacrifice 2 creatures. That player will sacrifice 2. If they have 21 creatures, they'll sack 3. Now, the reason, the closest comparison really is to Plaguecrafter, which doesn't see a lot of play, and I think part of that reason is that it doesn't really leave you behind anything, right? Plaguecrafter is taking a creature from everybody, and Legate Lanius is actually more like a 4-for-1. It's going to enter the battlefield. It itself stays because it's only our opponents. And then we're going to take 3 creatures, 1 from each player, and occasionally we're going to actually get a 4th. If you're playing against like a TPI perhaps, or a Kadira, something like that, then essentially we're getting another trigger. Now when somebody has that many creatures, the extra creature they're sacrificing doesn't really matter. So this part of the text, the 10th of the creatures that they have rounded up, really matters very, very little. The main point is that we are getting a 4-mana body that symmetrically, except for us, so asymmetrically, denies people their board resources with their creatures. But that's not all. Legate Lanius is so exciting to me because it indeed leaves us with a much bigger creature than we paid for. So if we cast this as a 4-mana commander, it's going to come in and usually it is going to eat 1 creature from each player, and it is going to become a 5/5 because whenever your opponent sacrifice a creature, we're going to put a +1/+1 counter on Legate Lanius. So if we cast a Tithing Blade after Legate comes out, we're actually going to grow him up to an 8/8 probably, because edicts do tend to hit at least 1 creature. And this is pretty interesting because we have a commander that has a very relevant enter the battlefield effect, very powerful. It's going to eat a creature. It's leaving us with a creature, and then that creature is going to grow if we continue to apply that edict attrition onto our opponent's boards. There's a whole bunch of other cards, past Tithing Blade. Of course, we have like Chain Devil, Slum Reaper, Fleshbag Marauder, Daemon's Disciple. There have been a lot more of these mass edicts at really good rates printed just recently, including Extract a Confession. Now, the other part of this that we have to keep in mind is that Legate Lanius has this enter a battlefield effect, which means that Legate is going to be phenomenal with Grave Flicker abilities. These Grave Flickers would matter less if Legate didn't get big, but the fact that Legate becomes big, and 5/5 is quite large for a black creature in this format. Doesn't have any evasion or anything, but as a 5/5 creature, if we Grave Flicker this card, we are going to re-trigger this ETB ability, which is so damn strong. Because if Legate gets big enough and he's punching hard enough that people have to kill him, we're going to have 6 or more Grave Flickers in the deck with which to basically turn our opponent's removal against them. They go to kill the Legate, which is one of our win conditions, right? It's a way to push damage because he grows when we cast the edicts. And not only do we re-trigger the edict, but he returns to becoming a 5/5. And this is really a perfect place to be, because a lot of black commanders that are very like where the commander is the one doing the damage, the commander is doing the work. Black and red, and particularly just black, doesn't have a lot of really good ways to ensure that our commander doesn't leave the battlefield. Anytime we're working with counters, we want to retain the counters. And while we don't retain the counters on Legate, he does come in as a 2/2. He's going to make everybody sacrifice another creature, which is going to put him back up to probably a 5/5. It might not always be 5/5, maybe a 4/4 in some cases, but usually we're going to hit, I would guess, 2 creatures at the very minimum, and most commonly we're going to hit 3. And so essentially we're kind of like offsetting that problem that we have in black, where gray flickers, they don't keep all the counters on, right? They don't allow you to retain the size that you'd grown to, but Legate grows on its own just by what it's doing. So it's very self-contained. We have a commander that attritions our opponent's board and becomes bigger for doing it. The other thing that is going to work really well with these edicts is sweepers. And when we're playing in Rakdos, one of the best reasons to be in Rakdos is getting access to a range of sweepers that give you good coverage. When we're playing in red, cards like Breath Weapon or Fiery Cannonade are going to be our cheaper edicts, or sorry, not cheaper edicts, but cheaper sweepers or wrath cards that are going to allow us to clear the board at instant speed for a little bit cheaper. And black is going to give us to deploy the ability to deploy sweepers that not only end the game, like Pestilence, for example, where repeatedly doing this over and over again is going to end up being a win condition, but they also can hit slightly bigger things. So the mix that we get of Dragon's Breath, Fiery Cannonade with Pestilence and Crypt Rats, with Sulphurous Blast and Drown in Sorrow is really, really powerful. And so we can use these sweepers to set ourselves up for powerful edict turns with Legate Lanius, where instead of hitting small stuff, we hit their biggest thing. And so Rakdos is really a wonderful place to be when you're pairing edicts in the command zone, which is not something we've really had before in this format, on your commander with the sweepers that red gets access to. And the other thing I want to talk about is that we are going right back to the plunder game plan, because plundering is really good. And what do I mean by plundering? If you've seen some of my other videos, plundering is the terminology I have started to coin around cards like Deadly Dispute. It's nicknamed after Costly Plunder, and I just realized that there wasn't like sort of a nickname for this class of cards where it says, as an additional cost, lose some resource and draw cards. And what do I mean by resource? Generally speaking, I mean permanence. The idea of like plundering things to get the gold is very thematically on point. And so Deadly Dispute, Reckoner's Bargain, Rowan's Grim Search, Costly Plunder, Deadly Dispute, I think I mentioned that one. These abilities, or even Village Rites and Corrupted Conviction, Dig Up the Body, another one. All of these allow us to sacrifice something in play to draw cards very efficiently. And Deadly Dispute and Ichor Wellspring is a build your own Siphon Mind, but it's drawing you 4 cards, and it's done in 2 installments. So instead of paying 4 mana all at once for this big card draw spell that draws you 3, we can play 2 cards in our deck, draw more cards, and we can play the Ichor Wellspring out first alongside other things. It basically increases our action economy, and I think it's really powerful. I think it's the basis of it. A lot of black decks should be considering this pairing of cards. So let's take a look at what the other ones are. We got the Mephitic Draught, of course, with Fanatical Offering that came in Lost Caverns of Ixalan. And then we have like Rowan's Grim Search as well, cards like Mycosynth Wellspring. And there's others too. There's Astrolabe, which is like half of an Ichor Wellspring while also fixing your mana. You can go quite a bit deeper too. You could play like your Chromatic Stars, your Terrarian, your Wizard's Rocket, things like that, where you can kind of pair these like high velocity draw spells together in a way that's highly synergistic and doesn't tend to lose you any life. Rowan's Grim Search is the exception, but Rowan's Grim Search is particularly ludicrous, like when you don't see something you like in the first 4. You can put all 4 into the graveyard and draw 2 more, which is basically Dig Through Time. It's not exactly Dig Through Time, but it's damn near close, and it's a common. So I think that's a really powerful thing to be doing. Now, when we think about our sequencing, we have a 4 mana commander, and when we're in a green-based deck, we want to have a 3 mana commander because we want to go turn 1 mana dork into turn 2 commander. When we're playing a 4 mana commander that isn't in green, we kind of want them to, we want to play 2 mana rocks. We want to go turn 0 nothing, turn 2 rock, turn 3 commander. And that's really the sequence we're looking for here. right? Like imagine this sequence where you go turn 2 Arcane Signet, maybe you go like turn 1 Astrolabe, turn 2 Arcane Signet, turn 3 Legate, make him into a 5/5, turn 4 you play an Edict and someone says, fuck no, I'm not getting hit by this 8/8, and then you Grave Flicker it, it comes in Edicts, and then your previous Edict goes off and it comes in as an 8/8 and eats 6 of your opponent's creatures. I think this is really, really powerful sequencing. If this were 5 mana, it would still be good, but it's not the same degree, because like we're really able to like put Legate in. He's bigger than his mana cost. He's a black creature. He slaps really hard. He grows, and he takes away creatures from our opponents, which is blockers, right? The other thing to mention too is that this is like one of the clearer initiative Monarch decks, where the initiative and the Monarch are among our win conditions. The ability to punch with our commander, kill people with Pestilence and Crypt Rats, kill people with the Trap, with Throne of the Dead 3, with the 4/1 skeleton token. That's kind of the goal, right? Like this is a control deck through and through. And we're going to attrition everybody's board. We're going to make our commander big. They're going to eventually have to try and kill it. And we're going to be Grave Flickering it. We're going to be plundering it to essentially keep moving through our deck. So that is that. Now let's go take a look at the list here. Going to go to our deck building window here, and we'll get to some questions. Alex says, it's like Mayhem Devil. We'll be interested in which one you think is better. Yeah, so we can definitely talk about that. Too Much Juice says, good evening, Monster of the East enthusiasts, indeed. And for those of you who may be confused about the thumbnail, I called it the Butcher. And the reason is because Lanius is Latin for butcher. And I think it's just a really cool name for this commander, is the Butcher. He is quite butcherful in the games. Alex Scott says, do you consider Demand Answers to be a plunder? Yes. Yep, Demand Answers, Perilous Research, both of those are plunder abilities. Demand Answers is in the deck right here. So discard a card or sacrifice an artifact. Demand Answers rides the line between rummaging and plundering. If we don't have anything in play that we want to sacrifice or that we can sacrifice, then it is a rummage. We're discarding and then we're drawing. But in the cards of like Costly Plunder, we're sacrificing an artifact or a creature. And so it's something that's already in play. But it feels correct. Like if you had like Vikings plundering a village, they're destroying things to get things out of it, right? And so I think that's really a fitting combination. In terms of your question about Mayhem Devil, they're different. Mayhem Devil actually wants to play Edicts almost more than Legate does. Mayhem Devil is also a bigger stacks piece. Mayhem Devil is sitting there in play and making it very difficult for people to operate, because in the games that I play with Mayhem Devil, other people around the table see opportunities to sacrifice things, to kill things that they want dead. And so you find that people work with you pretty frequently, right? Like they'll be like, oh, I'll crack my clue if you want to ping that thing down. Or if you have a 2 damage spell, I'll crack this and crack this. You know, I'll like Deadly Dispute this thing and then crack the treasure. And so Mayhem Devil like really hoses Malcolm decks right now. And I think that that's one way that they're different. But Mayhem Devil also doesn't close as quickly as this deck. They're very similar, though. Like, and actually, let's go just take a look here. I think that the Legate deck has a cleaner, maybe like a slightly cleaner, it's more straightforward. Let's put it that way. Mayhem Devil, like there's a little bit more that has to go on with Mayhem Devil. So let's take a look at Mayhem Devil, the devil himself. Let's compare them. You can see there's only 14 cards different. The big differences are going to be, we could probably still be playing Defile, but in Plunder decks, you do find that the mana bases get kind of complicated because they tend to be control or mid-range. So you're going to have artifact lands. They also tend to like to play a lot of the cycling creatures because those big threats can help you close the game out in the end. But like Mayhem Devil, the main difference is you've got like Battle Rage Blessing, Toxins Analysis, and Offer Immortality, which are all basically like Death Touch granting. Battle Rage Blessing and Offer Immortality are indestructible granting as well. They protect our commander. But all of these allow you to turn everything that you sacrifice into a 1 damage ping that kills something. The other thing is you have like Fountain of Ichor in here. Fountain of Ichor is not in Kaiser's Ace because we really want to focus on 2 mana rocks. We really want to be able to play the Legate on 3 if we want to. And so the only 3 mana rocks are the ones that are drawing us cards. I think that like Fountain of Ichor would still be good in Legate because any initiative in Monarch deck wants to have creatures attached to their mana base. And Fountain of Ichor really this is like a Mutavault. It's an expensive Mutavault, but like late in the game when the board is, attritioned, when maybe our commander has been a little more expensive, say somebody, Dragon Breath and then they initiative themselves, this allows us to go and grab it, which is really strong, but it's just hard to find room for it. Miracle's Edict is one of the other ones. Mayhem Devil, you want to lean all the way into the edicts. I think Legate, I'm not actually certain how much I want to lean into the edicts. I think just being a 5/5 is plenty good. Making it into an 8/8 is going to happen fairly regularly, but we don't need to be like pushing it that hard. And I think that the further we lean into edicts, the slower the game goes, right? And I think Legate is going to get a lot of work done as a 5/5. And that we can allocate some of those additional edict slots like Innocent Blood, Miracle's Edict, Slum Reaper are the ones that are most noticeable to more proactive ways of ending the game instead of just like attritioning everybody down, because this deck doesn't have like a wild number of creatures. We're at 16 creatures. And so we just need to be cognizant that we do need to end the game. And Kaiser's going to be really good at that. And the edicts, will definitely help. The other thing is Blood Tithe. I'm kind of like in and out on this card. It's like a small Gary. You're going to drain everybody for 3, and then you're going to gain life equal to the life lost this way. And it might look weird because you're like, we're playing control. This doesn't affect the board. But this is a gain 9, and it does 10% of the table's life total in 1 card. It's dealing 9 to the table out of 90 life, and we're going to gain 9 life ourselves, which is very good. So yeah, very, very similar, right? Alex says, I think that this is both makes it such a cool card. It plays like a black card in red, so it feels color shifted or like it should have been a Rakdos card. Yeah. I think that Legate is very much the real deal. So some of the differences you're going to see here, Galvanic Blast is one of them. We're going to have more artifacts in Legate. We are going to play Oubliette in this case. Prize Statue is another one. A lot of this stuff looks really interchangeable. Gilded Pinions is a big one. Gilded Pinions is essentially occupying the 2 mana rock slot, but it's going to give the ability to give flying to our Legate. We wouldn't play this in Mayhem Devil because Mayhem Devil isn't often like attacking all that much, but Legate, if it gets big, we do want to have ways to punch through, and I think the Gilded Pinions is going to play a nice role there. So yeah, this is kind of the difference between the deck, but let's take a look at the deck in its full. So we've got a lot of draw spells. We have the full package of Monarch and Initiative. The one card that we are missing is Crown Hunter Hireling, which is a 5 mana 4/4 that can only attack the player who has the Monarch. And I think there's still a reason to play it, but it doesn't really allow us to push damage. Now, the funny thing about the Monarch is that like when you have the Monarch, you aren't really attacking as much because you just want to sit on the Monarch and just accrue resources that are going to make you snowball and end the game eventually. But the fact that it doesn't attack in this particular deck is more concerning because Legate does kind of want to punch, but I don't know. I think it's perfectly reasonable because we can play a turn 4 5-drop initiative creature in this deck. If we go turn 1 nothing, turn 2 artifact rock, turn 3 Legate, turn 4 Monarch, that's a really powerful sequence. even if there's an opening, we might even go turn 1 nothing, turn 2 rock, turn 3. If there's nothing in play, like if it's developing very slowly, slam the initiative, and when people start to come, deploy creatures around the table, then you slam the legate, and you're able to hoard that initiative to ourselves. So we're going to have even like Trailblazer's Torch, which I think increasingly is like just a card that you really shouldn't not play, because initiative is just that good. It doesn't bring with it a body, and that's probably the worst thing about it. If this was like a 1/2 or even a 1/1, if it was a 1/1 for 4 with only the ability like gain the initiative, it would be significantly better. But it doesn't change the fact that Trailblazer's Torch is a card that we can play out, gain the initiative, and then we can actually just sacrifice it like Ichor Wellspring, right? We're not going to draw an additional card when it goes, but we did get a land off of it. We did get a lot of stuff off of it. It's just in a different zone. We're also going to be playing Bonder's Ornament and Network Terminal here, which I think is a concession to the fact that these repeat card advantage engines in a control deck are just important. And so 2 of our 13 ramp cards here are going to be allocated to Bonder's Ornament and Network Terminal. And this might look like a random number, right? Like why 13? And part of it is the limitation of 2 mana rocks. But the other part of it is that the math is approximately as such. 11 cards in your deck of a certain class of card, right? So say in this deck we have 11 ways to go from 2 mana on turn 2 to 4 mana on turn 3, right? That's the principle. If we have 11 of a certain kind of card in our deck, we are likely to draw 1 of it every game, and probably 2, with all the other draw spells that we have. So we want to see a 2 mana rock in every opening hand. We put 11 in. And that's not going to always work out. It's not going to always be in every opening hand, but like a lot of them it will be. And so we have 11 of them here. And then we have 2 of the larger 3 mana rocks that can allow us to generate card advantage at our end step. If we don't need to do anything, we can just either, loot with the Network Terminal, or we can draw off the Bonder's Ornament. You could even add in something like a Lantern of Revealing or something like that. That would also be reasonable. 11 removal spells might look thin for a control deck, but the reality is that we have 1 in the command zone. We have 6 edicts, so that's 7. Plus 11 is 18. Plus this, so 24. 24 pieces of removal in the deck. 1 of it is removable and very powerful.
Keys.
Oh, keys? I think they're in here.
Thanks.
There we go. Love you. And so I think 24 is perfectly reasonable for this kind of a thing. The other thing I want to point out too, we have the Grave Flickers here. I mentioned as well earlier that we're playing even the 2 mana ones. There are more, like Abnormal Durability or something, I can't remember. But Fake Your Own Death and Demonic Gifts are the best 2 mana Grave Flickers. The reason for that is Demonic Gifts returns your creature into play untapped. And then for Fake Your Own Death, it actually gives you a treasure token, which is really good. And I quite like that. So we're going to play those because if we get our commander out on turn 3 and eventually somebody kills it, we're just turning our opponent's removal against them. And I think that's so fucking strong. It's so punishing. You go and you're like, they cast Legate and you're like lightning bolt the thing with the counters on the stack. And then they just go like supernatural stamina and their thing is just huge. And then you lose even more creatures. So Legate is actually, when we think about this card, it's a punisher. This is a card that punishes you, kind of like if you were playing like Dark Souls. Imagine in Dark Souls or in an Elden Ring, the creatures are designed to punish certain kinds of behavior. You're either too far away and they use something powerful. If you're too close, they use something powerful. So you're having to kind of balance that. And Legate is the same way, where it's like you need to run creatures out so that you aren't losing your best creatures, and it's eating them. And by eating them, it becomes big. And by becoming big, it punches hard. And by punching hard, you're going to want it to stop punching. So you go to kill it, and then we go, make it do it again and again, right? Like it's just super strong. Frank, welcome to the chat here. Glad to see you. You're asking, is Phyrexian Censor good in this format as a commander? Phyrexian Censor is the 3-mana Phyrexian commander that limits your spell casting to 1 non-Phyrexian spell a turn. There are people who are specialists at this deck, okay? And so I don't want to talk out my ass here because I don't really have the experience with this commander that that I'd like. So let's take a look here at Phyrexian Censor. But let me give you my impressions of it and why I would not play this commander. And just take this with a grain of salt. I'm no like oracle on this format. I think that there's so much to learn. There is so many things to know and so much experience to be had that I just don't have it all, right? But here it is. It's a 3/3. Each player, you two, cannot cast more than 1 non-Phyrexian spell a turn. Non-Phyrexian creatures enter the battlefield tapped. Yeah, I don't love it. I think that there are times where it's going to be very good, and there's times where it's going to do a hell of a job of handing wins to combo players. If somebody's playing Gretchen, they play Gretchen underneath Phyrexian Censor, right? And then they just draw cards with activated abilities, and they play like they play an untapper, and they play a creature, and then they just draw a card at the end step, putting lands into play. I just don't love it, to be quite honest. White is not mono white has lines. There are things you can do in mono white. Some of the best things to do in mono white are small evasive creatures. So you can definitely do that here if you wanted to. You're just not getting like a lot of good control tools. A lot of your interaction is going to be, your removal interaction is going to be at sorcery speed. There are some exceptions. There are disruptive cards at instant speed like Chomano's Blessing, Benevolent Blessing, Ward of Lights, Stave Off, that allow you to use protection spells as interruptive spells for the combo player. If they go Freed from the Real on their untapper, and then you go Benevolent Blessing on blue, targeting their creature, you can stop them. I don't know. It's not terribly like proactive. Like, I think people in the past have accused me of playing decks that didn't have like clear win conditions or something like that. And that's not exactly true, but there's that sort of perception of control decks being that they just don't close the game well. I think Phyrexian Censor does sort of fall into that category. If this only hit your opponents, we'd be having a different conversation. I think that would be a really different conversation. But the fact that it hits us too is it's pretty backbreaking, I think. There's ways to get around it. And again, like, take this with a grain of salt. I've never played with the commander. I've never built with it. I don't like what I see, but there are people who have more confidence in it than I do, and you could definitely reach out to them. So, Frank, I would recommend tagging Findhorn Brownie, spelled as follows. Just like this. You can tag him in the Common Connoisseurs Discord channel, and he would be happy to talk your ear off about why he thinks the Phyrexian Censor is good, and why it's reasonable. I know that there was a person playing Phyrexian Censor in Detroit when I went there for the RAW 1K cPDH tournament, and it wasn't a deck built to win, I think is what I heard. And perhaps if somebody has a better recollection of this, they can clarify. But it wasn't really built to win. and it just kind of like people who played against it felt like it wasn't really trying to win. It was just slowing things down. I think there's probably ways you can build this that are more proactive, but like if I run out Phyrexian Censor, I can't even like play more than one spell a turn, and there aren't that many Phyrexian spells. Like if we go rarity common, type creature, or yeah, type Phyrexian actually. Color equals white, or ID equals white. Oh, equals? Or less than or equals to white. Yeah, type Phyrexian. You get 35 cards. And so like my concern is that you're just like, what kind of cards are you playing that like warrant being played? Are these cards good enough to be played? And I think a lot of these aren't. 2/2 for 2 with lifelink, sure. Intercessor is a very good card. Definitely, you know, worth mentioning. There's a couple of shining, like gleaming cards here. There's definitely like an infect, toxic kind of thing you could pull. Here we have a 2/2 first strike. But the best ones are going to be Alabaster Host, Intercessor. Basilica Shepherd is like fine, I suppose, but like you're not going to cast 2 spells in your turn anyways if you're paying 5 mana for this card. Mandible Justicar is good, but your ability to run out multiple artifacts in a turn is going to be hampered by Phyrexian Censor. Another really premium one is Porcelain Legionnaire, which is a 2-mana 3/1 first strike. You also have Suture Priest, which is... Suture Priest is arguably like one of the best white spells in the format, I think. We could get more specific and we could say it's one of the best white creatures. And welcome, Clay. It has a lot of great tools, e.g. the Rebel package, but as closing the game consistently. And people talk about the Rebel package, and I recognize that it exists, but I want to address the Rebel thing a little bit. These Rebel cards were really good when creatures sucked. And nowadays they're just pretty bad. I mean, the best thing you can be doing is like, I think one of the sweetest things you can do is put like Bound in Silence into play, because it is a Rebel card and it just enters. It doesn't need to have a target, so it just lands on something and it gets through Shroud, it gets through Hexproof, things like that. But like these creatures are like, it's a 2/1 for 1 that costs you 4 to put another into play. Children of Corliss is good for certain Vizkopa combos. Defiant Falcon, 1/1 flying for 2. You know, Lawbringer and Lightbringer. Lawbringer in particular is good as a stacks piece against like a Malcolm deck or like a Pinger deck, like a TPI deck that is comboing. You can put Lawbringer into play at instant speed, and then you can hold it up, and it's hard for them to kind of deal with that. Lightbringer is good. I think Lightbringer is good. 3-mana 3/2 that becomes a 4/3 with Ward 2 is good. But again, like these cards, they suck. 1-mana 1/1 that puts another Rebel into play. So you go this one, you pay 3. It's so much mana. I just don't actually think that the Rebels are very strong. But other people disagree. I think that there's things to do with it, but I don't know. Like, I just have a hard time imagining allocating slots to these kinds of cards when there's so much more that I could be doing with these slots. I think that's part of it. And so, yeah, your point, Clay, about trouble closing the game consistently, I think is absolutely true. Like, I think your problem is also just dying. Like, you can just die to combo if you don't have Suture Priest, or if you don't have like Standard Bearer. And even if you do, you don't really have the instant speed removal to like back up that thing and actually police that combo player properly. Frank says, I think Toxic Infect package plus Flicker effects might be better at closing out a game, but I haven't play tested it yet. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so white flickering is a form of card. It can be card advantage, but usually it's like you're flickering a creature, you're getting an ETB off of it, you're getting your things. And then if you flicker it again, you're like protecting your creature, which is a 1/1, but you're also re-triggering the ETB. which is good. So flickering tends to be part of white, mono white mana bases, because you can flicker stuff like Heliod's Pilgrim, Totem Guide Heartbeast, and Shrine Steward, which are all kind of the same thing. Being able to tutor for those is really good. What's up, Zach? Pauper Mercs are better than Rebels. I'd believe it. Type. Oh, white. I want to do black. There we go. 16 mercenaries. I mean, all of these are pretty bad too. These are much worse. The rebels are better than mercenaries. Yeah, I think all of these are for the most part pretty bad. Yeah, and they're pretty bad. But there's decks that can use them. I just don't think Phyrexian Censor is really where we want to be. What's up, Cost? Made it to the stream. I'm a bit behind for Phyrexian spells. Do you get crib swap? You do. That's another reason to be doing it. So like type or O changeling. Rarity common, ID equals white. Because we want to get the artifacts too, like Universal Automaton. I think that Irregular Cohort is fine, but we're not really a Kindred deck, so we're not giving these +1/+1. We're not giving them any keywords. Crib Swap is like one of the better changeling spells in the whole format. Shields of Elisvel has some usability against Dragon's Breath and Fiery Cannonade and Eye Blight Massacre, and certain removal spells like Victim of Night. Couple of other ones. They have evasion and fetch on rates. Still bad in PDH. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's my answer. That's my long answer. I don't love Phyrexian Censor, but give it a shot and see what happens. I would say that's the biggest thing that I recommend is like, just because I don't like something doesn't mean you shouldn't try it. I think like you should test it out and see what happens. And if it's dog shit, like then you learn something, right? And if it's not, then I learned something. Everyone else learns something, right? So yeah, there we are. But back to this, a bit of a tangent there. One of the questions I have for you all is how many edicts do we want to be running? Because I mean, I think it's fine to run like lots of edicts like this. Like 6 is about twice as much as I normally run in a black deck. Usually I'll have 3, which is going to be Extract, Confession, Tithing Blade, and Chain Devil. That's what it's going to look like. I value the Chain Devil hitting non-tokens, although there's definitely instances where it does not work out the way you want it to. But 6 edicts here means that we're going to actually be able to push Legate up to an 8/8. And if it's an 8/8, then we 2-shot people if they don't have any blockers. So I think this is looking good. We have all of our removal, if you notice here, is like pretty cheap. I'm not even playing Fleshbag Marauder, not Fleshbag, but Faceless Butcher is actually pretty damn good here. I wonder if I should be playing it. All of the edicts. Yeah, I mean, I think that edicts vary in... We've talked about this a lot in previous streams. Edicts vary in quality. Edicts are going to tag good creatures occasionally. If we look at our games that we played, Clay, with Islane and Gator, the edicts were hitting good stuff almost every time, which was pretty sick. But there are definitely like a lot of decks out there that just aren't affected by edicts very much, like TPI, Gut. And so they vary, but that's okay. Like, I guess the bigger question is like with an edict in the command zone, do we need to have these? Because the one thing that I want to make sure that I've got addressed in this deck is like, how do we close the game out? I think the commander is one answer to that. The commander gets big, he can punch. Initiative is another one. And so that's why like I've allocated extra slots to these cards here. And this is a bit of a test run. So we've got Seismic Monstrosaur, which I think is a really good card. 6/5 trample for 6 is perfectly fine rate. The ability to get a land off of it in the early game. And the ability to sacrifice lands to draw cards is actually pretty good. because when we're really hitting our land drops and we've got lots of stuff, this is just going to give us more cards, right? And then the other one, we always play Troll, we always play Oliphant, but then the other one is Gloomfang Mauler. And I chose Gloomfang Mauler because the backup is going to give Legate counters. And actually, maybe that's where, if these are helping us finish the game, I'm actually going to swap this out. I just talked about how good that card is, but I think that we actually want Crag Smasher Yeti, because this is going to come in and give our commander trample, which is really good. Yeah, we're going to play Crag Smasher Yeti. It's a much worse creature on its own. It's a 4/2 trample, but I think that that's going to leave us with a really big commander. Maybe it baits people into trying to kill it, and then we just Grave Flicker it, which I think is dope. Yeah, Clay, you do love your edicts. I don't know if you love them more than I do, though. Koss says, give me slime token flashback with that Chain Devil. Yeah, actually, so a good example of why Chain Devil isn't always the greatest is when your opponent is playing a slime deck, because they're all tokens. And Koss and I played a game where all I had in play were slimes, and they were very large. And he played Chain Devil, and it's non-token. It does not kill slimes, which is really funny. That was pretty punishing. Frank, you said the Monarch. Yep, we do have the Monarch. We have Staunch Throne Guard. We have Thorn. We have Crimson Fleet Commodore. The Monarch is also a win condition, but less of what the Monarch actually does. The Monarch draws us cards that gets us to winning the game, whereas Initiative actually pushes us towards the end. Monarch just sort of makes it inevitable in a way. So, yeah. Not the slimes. I still have nightmares. Yeah, the slime, the first game I played with the slimes, I put 52 power into play. And that was pretty sweet. That felt really good. And I died because of it, which is really interesting. Like I got 3v1 sort of, or maybe it was a 2v1. It was kind of a 3v1 in a way. Like I killed Koss with like 38 damage or something stupid like that. And then like the next turn I ran out my commander and a slime, and then I died. So, I mean, that's kind of par for the course. If you get too scary in games, you tend to get swatted. Tell me what you guys think. Seismic Monstrosaur or Crag Smasher Yeti. They're the same mana cost. This one draws cards, which I kind of like. This one puts trample on our commander. I guess we have quite a bit of inevitability. We have a lot of card draw, so maybe this isn't necessary. We also have Haunt of the Dead Marshes, which I think is a phenomenal Magic card, and I didn't have it in the deck. The reason we would play this is because our commander is legendary. And whenever you're in a black deck with a legendary commander, Haunt of the Dead Marshes is really high value. One mana scry on a body that comes back into play, tapped, is amazing for repeatedly feeding some of these plunder effects. I really like it. Really like it. Yeah. Another card to consider here too is Dark Ritual. And Dark Ritual is going to go on our sideboard here, but Dark Ritual is a card that allows us to play out our Legate on turn 2. Turn 2, you are probably going to hit 1 creature. You might hit 2. I'm doubtful that you're going to hit 3. So I don't think Ritual's value is all that strong there. Where Ritual would be valuable is in deploying an early initiative. Turn 2, Vicious Battle Rager. Turn 3, but see, it's awkward. You would have to go turn 1 land, turn 2 Arcane Signet into Dark Ritual into Vicious Battle Rager, turn 3 land into Legate. It's very specific. Otherwise, you get to turn 3 and you don't have the mana to cast Legate. You do on 4. But Dark Ritual is just a good card to be putting in a lot of black decks. I've definitely, over the last like 6 months, I've come around quite a bit to it when the things that you run out there give you resources. So when you're using Dark Ritual as to support a value engine where you're like running out your Dark Rit and then you're getting a value engine online, I think that's really powerful. Using rituals for fair outcomes doesn't leave you so blown out. Like if you run out the initiative early, you get a land, and you're like kind of guaranteeing that you're gonna have a functional game plan, which I think is great. The best case scenario is you just like never give it up, which can happen. Like early initiative, nobody can do anything about it. So especially when our commander like eats our opponent's creatures like repeatedly. Couple of unusual ones in here. We are playing the Gilded Pinions, which I talked about. We have Guardian Idol. Even though we're a 2-color deck, this card being a creature in our mana base is really good. Again, this is like Mutavault. And I would love to get the Fountain of Vicar in here as well, but Prize Statue is another one. This is kind of like acting like these fodder pieces, but it's a 2-mana rock that we can sacrifice without feeling bad about sacrificing a rock. It actually gets us ahead. Thought Vessel, just another untapped rock. One thing also that I see as a potential problem is just instants and sorceries. Or sorry, not that, but life gain. My bad. We only have so much life gain. Not very much of it. We just have Reckoner's Bargain and Gray Merchant, which makes me nervous. And I really, really, really wish that we could fit in here Okiba Reckoner Raid, Serrated Scorpion. Legate is a soldier, unfortunately, not a warrior, so it doesn't really work to play Malakir Blood Priest. But like Vampire Spawn, those cards are really good at helping us stay alive because they're a body that can block and they drain everybody. They're very efficient. Vampire Spawn, if it ever punches a single time, it did 8 damage to the table and it gained us 2 life. And 6 of that was unblockable with haste. So like one of the thoughts I had was like go down a little bit on edicts so that we're maybe more around like 4 and then add in some of those things. Alternatively, it's not on a body, but Blood Tithe is another one, like a big source of black life gain. Crypt Incursion is another one, although Crypt Incursion is not a very functional spell. It's exiling creatures, and exiling creatures is like from a graveyard is not super premium. Usually we want, when we have a graveyard hate spell, we want it to exile spells, not creatures. So yeah, Blood Tithe would be a great add if we had room for it. Nocturnal Feeder is always good. Okiba Reckoner Raid is very efficient. But I just don't have room for them right now, so I'm not exactly certain what to do about that. Yeah. Crag Smasher Yeti, we'll just have to see. Seismic Monstrosaur could be correct, but I think we have enough card advantage that we don't necessarily need the draw on this, and that this one leaving something on our commander that also gives it trample is like a big deal. Because if Legate is an 8/8, right? Like we resolve him and then we resolve an edict. Crag Smasher Yeti is going to turn him into a 10/10 trample. And that's so big. That's awesome. So yeah, this is kind of the deck here. Chosen just a lot of really efficient removal spells too. Lightning Bolt, Scred, Galvanic Blast, Ghastly Demise, Sniff Out, and Spinning Darkness. Clay and I have been talking a lot lately about like the kinds of removal that we want to be playing. And I have been biasing more and more towards free and 1 mana. And also spells that go face. So obviously Galvanic and Galvanic Blast and Lightning Bolt do great that way, but also like you can see a bias towards 1 and 0 mana here. And I will alter the deck to make these work if I think that that's the correct thing to do. But we get Terminate, Victim of Night is great. Oubliette, we are keeping Oubliette in here. I think that this is just good enough. Like you just take a player out of the game kind of. And that's great when we want to like put the pedal to the metal and mess people up. We have the Dread Return as well, which is going to be great when you go like turn 1 Cycle Troll, turn 2 Mana Rock, turn 3 Dread Return. Just for those early plays. I think those are definitely good. But yeah, this is the deck. Let's take a look at the considering here. A lot of these are going to be from Mayhem Devil, but there are cards like the Impetus cards, and because this is actually the same thing in Mayhem Devil as it is in Legate, In Legate and in Mayhem Devil, we run all these edicts, and we don't want to run edicts alongside the impetus cards, because the impetus cards give them a very tempting way to turn our 2-for-1 impetus card into kind of a 1-for-1, right? Because then we end up killing it for them. And the nuts with an impetus card is that you put it on something moderately big, it becomes large, and then that thing punches other people for the rest of the game. And then because it's never hitting you, you just get really ahead with these treasure tokens and all that other stuff. So I'd love to be running Shiny Impetus in here, but Shiny Impetus and Parasitic Impetus run counter to the Edict plan. So there's that. No Echoing Decay in the deck. And the reason I don't run Echoing Decay here, which is Echoing Decay is like a staple black spell. You should run Echoing Decay when you have access to it, because it hits so many relevant things right now. And you can tell I'm speaking in your best interest here, because I play those decks. I play TPI. Echoing Decay and Echoing Truth are the nightmare. They hit so hard. They kill so much for so little. They do it at instant speed. Particularly the interaction between TPI tokens being soldiers and Abdel's tokens being soldiers. They're different colors, they're different types, but they're both soldiers. Not in their type line, but in their name. It just says the same name. So this hits all of them. If you hit like a 1 TPI token, it's going to get that one and the Abdel tokens all at the same time. The reason I don't run it here is because I have a lot more sweepers. If you're in mono black, Echoing Decay is even more important because it's an instant speed sweeper. It also kills a lot of combo creatures on the stack, because -2/-2 tends to do that. But here we just have like Breath Weapon and Fiery Cannonade, which are going to be better. I think in a lot of cases they're going to kill a lot more stuff, and they're still going to kill the combo creatures. Other cards you can consider in here would be like Kumbaj Witches is pretty sweet. I also think that there's something to be said for exploring, going even deeper down the rabbit hole of plundering, namely with cards like Chromatic Star, maybe Synth, although Synth doesn't really like to be in this deck. Our curve in this deck is, we do have like a significant number of 4, 5, 6, 7. You know, there's some weight on the end, even though we've divided up a lot of it by putting a lot of cheaper draw spells in here. But Synth could be worth it. Chromatic Star, Terrarian, Wizard's Rockets, things like that to just make your plundering all that much better. These ones here. Hunter's Blowgun is no good in this deck. Beamtown Beatstick was another card I was considering, but I really just, I just don't think I want to draw even more attention to the commander. So, yeah, but there's the Crypt Incursion. And some of these ones here don't belong in here. These are cards for Mayhem Devil. I basically just duplicated the deck. Yeah, even like Deadly Derision, making a treasure doesn't really matter. Unexpected Windfall, Big Score, cards like that. Unexpected Fangs could be good, like putting a lifelink counter on our commander, definitely. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at. I think that the deck is 95% of the way there. It's not a hyper complicated deck. We want sweepers to pair with our Edict creature in the command zone. We want Initiative and Monarch to close out the game. We want a large number of mana sources and repeat sources of card advantage to grind the game down and to just have constant access to our commander. And we're going to play a couple of Edicts to pair alongside our commander to make him even bigger. Man, when you hit off Throne of the Dead 3 and you hit like a Chain Devil in this deck, you're going to put so much power onto the battlefield. It's going to be like put Chain Devil into play and you put 7 power into play. And then you're going to put another 3 with Legate off of that, which is pretty hype. So yeah, there we go. Let me know if you have any questions here. We're going to keep the stream open for a little bit. We're certainly happy to discuss some of these choices here. We could try and find room for the Haunt. I did cut Slum Reaper on purpose. I also cut Rot-Tide Gargantua because Rot-Tide Gargantua has a pretty glaring weakness. Miracle's Edict is a really good card. I think it's frequently underrated. All you do upon resolution is roll a d20. So nobody knows whether you're going to make everyone sack something or one player sack something. And when you get the 10 through 19, which is half the time, nobody can respond to the dice number that you rolled. So they have to pass priority on this, knowing that it could mess them up, that there's no way for them to stop that ability once it resolves. So it can be good. You can be like, you can tell the table, I am definitely looking to edict that creature right there. That's why it's in my deck. It's to hit creatures like that. And then you roll, and oops, I hit an 11. And then you take 3 creatures from everybody. And so nobody stopped you because you were just trying to kill that one creature, but instead you got one of everyone's. So I do like the card, but like, I think I'd prefer in this case if my edicts were killing 3 things at a time instead of just 1 half the time. It is cheap though, 1 mana. No Innocent Blood here because Innocent Blood kills our commander too. I don't think that's good. I think Innocent Blood is not very good in a lot of decks. It is 1 mana. It's very punishing. It's very good in Mayhem Devil, but like, yeah. I keep trying to find room for these, the cave, the hidden cycle, and I never end up doing that because, you know, if you want to play cheap removal, you need Scred to be good, so you need lots of basics. And this isn't even lots. This is 17. 17, 18, 19, 20, 21-ish. Tyrant's Choice is not terribly good in a deck like this. Tyrant's Choice is an interesting political tool. I've had it work before, where I look around at the table and I say, my only tool for killing that creature is to cast Tyrant's Choice, and I need you all to work with me. And then they have to lose creatures, which is kind of what we want in a way, to kill that creature. But the problem is that it only takes one person breaking ranks to make it like a big damage spell. And I don't like that. I don't like that at all. I think the card should have been templated differently, but that's just me. Like, it should have been templated to say, if in a tie, you get your choice, so that you would have to be completely outvoted to make it work. But it's neither here nor there. Tyrant's Choice is good in a forward-leaning black deck where the damage is good and the eating of the creatures is good. Eat the creatures, clear the way for clear the blockers out of the way. Frank says you could play Flame Slash over Scred for more land versatility. I actually think Flame Slash might just be something I want in here regardless. Flame Slash kills a lot of things. And we have to look at this removal suite and say, like, it's okay that these don't kill everything. You know, 4 damage, 3 damage does not kill everything. And the reason that that's okay is because edicts can kill the biggest things. And a sweeper plus an edict kills big things. And repeatedly triggering our edicts kills big things. And so I've considered Flame Slash. I think it is in my considering here. No, looks like it's not, but I did consider it when I was building this. So let's put that back in the back in here. That's in the main deck right now, but let's. I think we prefer Scred because it's instant speed, but I could totally see Flame Slash. Part of the thing that's interesting about Flame Slash is that a lot of times people don't want to run sorcery speed removal, but I so frequently run instant speed removal at sorcery speed because I just want their thing to die. We could cut Oubliette for Flame Slash. That is like a third of the cost to kill most things. Difference with Oubliette being that we are locking them out of their commander for a long time. And I think that that is often worth it. It's just expensive. The other card is Faceless Butcher. Faceless Butcher with these Grave Flicker effects and the Plunder effects is really good. It's really good with the initiative and the Monarch. You like cheat it into play and you take somebody's commander and then they don't put the commander under the Faceless Butcher. They send it right back to the command zone. So it's like being able to hit removal off of Throne of the Dead 3 is very good. It means that when you don't have any out in your hand, if you are close to the throne, you can rush to the throne to get removal, either with an Edict on a body or with a Faceless Butcher. Yeah, Flame Slash would definitely be good. I think this card is pretty underplayed right now. Plus it has a very cool alternate art right now that you can get. This person's getting clapped. This is Dino Monster. This is a Tarmogoyf. I think that's a Tarmogoyf. Oh, how interesting. But yeah, Tarmogoyf getting like getting its head cut off. So it's pretty cool. Yeah. This is what it is here. Another change I could make too would be to like cut Network Terminal or Bonder's Ornament, one of those two, for Crown Hunter Hireling, to just have like an extra density of Monarch effects and initiative effects. Being able to run those out and start getting the gravy train going is really good, even though Crown Hunter Hireling can't attack the player. They can't attack anybody if nobody else has the Monarch. Which I think is still fine because when you're playing Monarch, you're mostly blocking. So, yeah. Well, with that all done here, I think we can kind of wrap this up. This doesn't need to be a long stream today. This was basically just to share with you guys this very exciting new Fallout commander. I think this is... We actually, you know, we could do a little set review. Yeah, why don't we do that? We'll do a little set review. I don't have any notes for it, but we can go through it. Zach says, isn't Innocent Blood better with all the Grave Flicker to flicker your commander? Makes it smaller, but a double Edict is pretty strong. Yes, but it requires that I have 2 cards. It requires I have this and Innocent Blood, and I don't love that. You know me, though, Zach. I'm a very conservative Magic player, so if something requires, like, more than 1 card to be, like, good, because we don't have a lot of fodder creatures in this deck. You know, it's like all of our creatures are like kind of important to us. Like if you look, there's not like a huge plurality of them. That's one of the things about the deck that I would love to remedy, is to try and get, you know, like 3 more creatures in the deck. Maybe it might be like Haunt of the Dead Marshes. Just because Initiative and Monarch decks really like to have a board presence. They like to have a lot of creatures in play that you can like forage onto. They like to have creatures that can block and attack. They like to have evasive creatures if at all possible. I think the ramping is part of what's going to make that possible, because we can just replay our commander if he dies. So yeah, you have to keep your creatures to actually end the game. Exactly. Yep. To actually end the game. Yeah, and if we just have Legate in play and we cast Innocent Blood, then yeah, we do wipe the board, but we lose our commander. And I think the commander is a good beater. He's a good way to kill people. So Innocent Blood is good. It's just that it requires a special kind of deck. They're definitely out there. Yeah. You know, another place where that Flame Slash would be really nice instead of Oubliette, and we'll just pay attention to this. Like, this is a really good thing to do when you're making changes to a deck, is think about what the card could be. You say Oubliette could be a Flame Slash, and when we draw Oubliette next time, do we prefer that it was Oubliette or Flame Slash, and what was the matchup? Right? Like, because Flame Slash allows us to hit something really cheaply and then play our commander if it's in the command zone, so that we can get the biggest thing. Whereas Oubliette just gets whatever the hell you want it to, which is strong. Faceless Butcher would be very good in this deck. I wish we had it, because Faceless Butcher destroys commanders. Like, it's, you know, it's 4 mana, but like it's a creature that can be Grave Flickered. They like attack you, you block their biggest thing, you Grave Flicker your Faceless Butcher, and you tag another commander. And nobody in their right mind sends their commander underneath the Faceless Butcher or the Alabaster Host Intercessor, you know, or the Makeshift Bindings or whatever it is. They send it to the command zone. Cossack asks, is Dwarven Mine worth it in the deck because it gives you something else to sack, though it doesn't work with all the board wipes and the deck is leaning towards. The bigger problem with Dwarven Mine is that we only have 5 mountains. That's the bigger problem. And if you look at the distribution here, this is a black colorless deck more than it is a black-red deck. So we actually don't really have like a ton of red in here. So we can't really raise this number up very much. There's other cards we could talk about as well, like Ashnod's Intervention, which is another 1-mana Grave Flicker, except it sends it to your hand. But it works with Exile, and it works with things that are put into the graveyard, which is kind of cool. It's definitely worth considering, but I don't love that it sends it back to the hand. There's another one as well, Kaya's Ghost Form. Kaya's Ghost Form is sorcery speed, which is a big no-no when it comes to protection. You can go and watch Laubert's stream, or not stream, but video on that. Let me pull it up here. But sorcery speed removal invites everybody to invites people to 2-for-1 you, because they see the protection spell coming down and they know that it's going to take twice as many kill spells to make that happen now. Yeah, he did this video 6 months ago, but it still holds up today. So let me drop this in the chat like that. And but yeah, like to sum it up quite simply, Kaya's Ghost Form is sorcery speed, but it's very cheap. It's very cheap, and it works with Exile as well. And it also returns it into the battlefield untapped. So definitely a good card to consider. And we can kind of run it out pretty early. We could run it out on turn 4 if they try to kill our commander. You know, it might even be that, like, there's another way to look at this too. Like, if our commander is the thing that we're edicting with, then these maybe could be maybe we take and drop some of these for more gray flickering effects. So you can go O return, O battlefield, O instead, I think it is. Oh, it's not instead. Dies. So like Abnormal Endurance could go in, Ashnod's Intervention. I think Fungal Fortitude is really good because it's actually an aura that stays around. You could also play a Return to Action, which would allow you to gain lifelink in some cases to gain life with it. But yeah, there's a couple. Return to Action. You could go deeper on the Grave Flickering for sure. And look, Grave Flickering in black is really good. I think that, I don't know, it'd be interesting to try out. You could cut like Demon's Disciple and Fleshbag Marauder would be the cuts that I would make. Chain Devil is more likely to hit what you want. Extract a Confession is more likely to hit what you want. Tithing Blade leaves a permanent behind to sacrifice. And Veraska's Fall is instant speed. And so I would probably cut Fleshbag and Demon's Disciple. Even though Demon's Disciple is a human for Path of Ancestry. Maybe cut those two and add 2 more Grave Flickers. The 2-mana Grave Flickers are not nearly as good. The 1-mana ones are definitely the best. Unfortunately, we can't run Undying Evil. Undying Evil doesn't work with counters. So if it already has counters on it, this isn't going to work, unfortunately. But we've got some other good ones. Okay, well, let's transition here real quick into a set review. How about that? For Fallout. So let's do rarity common. I am going to go out on a limb and say that this set was a bit of a dud for PDH. There are some cool things. We got some nice new reprints. Farseek, Mortuary Mire. Mortuary Mire got its first reprint, which is great. We also got reprints of some of the artifact lands, which is cool. Rampant Growth, Wild Growth got a nice reprint. Sticky Fingers. These nothing new here. All the glitters got something new. And so when we go under uncommon type creature, we do have some options, but not a ton. We got a reprint for Loyal Apprentice, Whirler Rogue, really like, and Corpse Jack Menace. Like, I truly think that Legate Lanius is like pretty fucking pushed compared to the rest of this stuff. Like, the rest of this stuff is not very good. Raul says during each of your turns you may cast each of your turns. Ugh. Why has it got to be that way? If this was every turn you could cast a spell that you had milled, then you would like have this in play, mill, cast a card from it, and then during somebody else's turn you like block, tap to mill, and then you can get that card and cast it. Right. But as it stands, it's like not that good. Nightkin Ambusher, 4/4 for 4 with Ward 2. It does actually have an ETB effect that would win the game. If you flicker it infinitely, if you go Ghostly Flicker and Dimir, then you can flicker to give everybody infinite rad counters, and then they mill over their decks and they lose. But it's also kind of weird because it's like a 4-mana commander that doesn't really care about flickering that much. So that one's got, I don't know, it's kind of interesting looking. Infesting Radroach was kind of interesting at a certain point. It's kind of like Infect, where they get rad counters based on the amount of damage, and then they have to mill. And when they mill, they bring the Radroach back from the graveyard if they mill a non-land card, which is cool. But like the rad counters do not work well with commander damage. So you would not be like a Voltron commander that is trying to kill people with commander damage. In this, you would just be trying to hit people for lethal. And you'd play, cranial plating, you'd play a lot of equipment, bone splitter, ceremonial knife, prying blade type stuff to, get into the red zone. But it comes back, it skips the command tax, which is very cool. If you get rad counters on multiple people, if people are killing your commander in between turns, you're gonna get it back, which is pretty cool too. We could even use like Pestilence, for example, to do stuff with that. Bloatfly Swarm is a really interesting one that came up here. It is a 4-mana 5/5 or a 0/0 that comes in with 5+1/+1 counters on it. If it would be dealt damage while it has a counter on it, prevent that damage, remove that many counters from it, and then give each player a rad counter for each 1/1 counter removed this way. Definitely an interesting card. With Pestilence, this does really, if you do like Pestilence and Sadistic Glee, or Pestilence and Eternal Thirst, this card goes so hard. Because every time something dies, you put a counter on the Bloatfly Swarm, and every time it gets hit, it loses counters, and it gives everybody rad counters. So it's just like a really big evasive creature that deals damage to everybody and has a form of disruption, basically, which sometimes is going to be disruption and sometimes is going to give your opponents exactly what they want. Like they didn't want to draw more lands, but you just milled them 3 lands, and other times it's going to mill their win condition. Kind of interesting card. It's like a more mid-rangey Loyal Apprentice. If somebody like, what would they have to do? If somebody were to deal 5 damage to this with a Scred, everybody gets 5 rad counters, which is a lot. That is a lot of counters. but I think that this is most likely to die to bounce spells, bouncing it back to your hand, or destruction. Just destroy it, right? This would be kind of like, you wouldn't want to point your damage-based removal at this. Generally speaking, it doesn't deal 5 anyways, but you would want to do something different with it. So that one's kind of interesting. Bunch of reprints here. Craig Boone, Novak Guard, is like a sniper character. And it says, reach and lifelink for a 3/3 for 3, which is like, that's good in good aggressive colors. When you attack with 2 or more creatures, you put 2 quest counters on him. When you do, Craig Boone deals damage equal to the number of quest counters on it to up to 1 target creature, unless that creature's controller has Craig Boone deal that much damage to them. Keep in mind that he has lifelink. So you're going to be like, I see this as going in an aggressive deck. You want like a lot of cheap evasive flyers, maybe some first strikers that can punch every turn, like a Porcelain Legionnaire. And then every time you attack, you're putting counters on Craig Boone, and you can hit people or hit the creatures. And you say, do you want to take the damage yourself because you're already getting punched, or do you just want the creature to die? And then it's giving you lifelink. So I think this is a cool commander. It doesn't scream like hyper competitive, but I think that there are people out there that'll figure out a way to make it work in competitive. That would be my hunch. I think it's totally reasonable. It's got a lot of text on it. It has removal. It gains life. It's aggressive and defensive with the reach and the lifelink. And it only requires 2 creatures to attack instead of 3 for battalion. And Zach says Mega Sloth. Yeah, we can talk about the Mega Sloth. Mega Sloth is pretty Giga Chad. Where's my boy? Sloth must be in the... Oh, no, here he is. Yeah, Lumbering Mega Sloth. He's pretty big. 1 less to cast for each counter among players and permanents. Very good chance that this becomes like a 4 mana 8/8 trample, tapped trample. It's mono green, which is kind of rugged, kind of rough. I don't know. But it's big. It's big, and its cost is reduced mostly permanently, I would say, although the counters on permanents is going to fluctuate. Yeah, it's going to fluctuate. So, but I bet it's undercosted most of the time. There's definitely, for each counter. So you could this is kind of like a Hamza. Yeah, it's kind of like Hamza, except you're just trying to cast your commander. It's also kind of like mono green Oxida Finisher, isn't it? Or Sailor's Bane. Like Oxida Finisher, Sailor's Bane, Mega Sloth are all kind of in the same category of like big, dummy, thick beaters that the cost gets reduced dramatically on. So this deck would be interesting, actually. You'd have a lot of creatures that had counters on them. You'd probably play plenty of creatures that were like the Clockwork one. There's a Clockwork Beetle that comes in with 2 counters on it for 1 mana, and that's basically a ritual. Permanent ritual. Proliferate is good in that context too. Lumbering Mega Sloth isn't the deck I would play, right? Like this isn't the kind of deck I would like to play, but Zach, I think you would love this deck. I think you'd love this. And you know, honestly, like how bad can it be? It's probably a very undercosted 8/8 trample, which is a convenient number because that's a 2-shot. And if you're starting at 8, then any buff and power, a Rancor, a Bone Splitter, starts to make it look like it's going to be very hard for them to chump and stay alive. So, yeah, that one's worth mentioning. Next thing, we have the Gunner's Conscript is another one you could look into. 2 mana, 2/2 trample. Love that it has evasion. Gets +1/+1 for each aura and equipment attached to it, which is going to be a big creature. It's going to be pretty big. And if it dies and it was enchanted, you create a Junk. And Junk is the newest kind of game object. And I wish we had more of them. Oh, pardon me. Junk is basically an impulse draw. In fact, let's look it up here. Sacrifice this artifact, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn, activate only as a sorcery. This activate as a sorcery is so makes me so mad. But this is a good way to get card advantage in colors that don't have it. I think that's pretty cool. What's the other one? We have Crimson Caravaneer, which I've seen Rave Amati in the Common Connoisseurs Discord channel checking out. This is interesting because it kind of flows in the same vein as like Loyal Apprentice. Except that Loyal Apprentice, what makes Loyal Apprentice good is that your eggs are not in one basket. Your eggs are your commander produces tokens, and then the tokens are like a lot of your game plan. They're doing a lot of damage. They're, you know, pushing through with the equipment that make treasure, and they're kind of doing a lot of work, right? In this, your commander has to make contact, but double strike is good. And there's definitely like ways to leverage this. The biggest problem with Caravaneer is that it's mono red and it doesn't discount itself. So, you know, if you've seen the video that Zach and I did on Oxida Finisher, the reason I was interested in that ever was because your commander is only ever like 2, maybe 3 mana. And you get to a point where it's only ever going to be 2. And so it's a 7/7 trample for 2 every time. That's a different game plan. You can grind a lot of damage and through a lot of removal when your commander is discounted and your commander is your central game plan. But when you're in mono red and your commander is your central game plan, you are really strapped because you don't have any way to really protect your commander. There's nothing near the consistency of like green hexproof spells, white indestructible versus white protection, white hexproof, black undying, black indestructible, and blue counterspells, blue hexproof, blue shroud. Red is like, it's like fucking Goblin Chirurgeon or bust. And look, nobody ever is playing the Brute. The Brute is a terrible card. So I don't love it. I don't think this is terribly resilient. The junk tokens are good. You're going to make 2 of them a turn if you hit. We got our boy here, Legate, looking mighty sinister. So yeah, that's kind of what we got. Zach says, nah, there's way too much counterplay and killing stuff with counters on it. Yeah, and the other thing is like, I mean, Sloth probably wants to be around a lot of creatures because the creatures are going to be the ones that have the counters on them a lot of times, the most efficient. Although Everflowing Chalice slaps in this deck. If you put it in with 2 counters, it's basically making like 4 mana, which is strong. So you're probably not that weak to edicts because you just run out lots of creatures anyways. And if you're putting counters on things, then it actually is probably nice to have ramp creatures because you can make the ramp creatures bigger. So I don't know. But yeah, the really premium ones are going to be Legate. I think Legate is better than all of the commanders in this set combined. The new ones. We also have Young Deathclaw, which is worth mentioning because it's Viral. Can't remember his name, but he's a mythic or a rare or something from another set. Gives each creature in your graveyard scavenge. I don't think it's very good, but you know. You like put a Fleshbag Marauder in the graveyard and then cast the Fleshbag Marauder again, basically to make your dude bigger. It's interesting, but I don't love it. Very cool new art for Winding Constrictor though. Holy shit. Very sick, very lethal looking. Yeah, so that's that. I think what we're gonna do. I'm feeling quite tired. I think we're gonna wrap things up here. As there's really not a whole lot more to talk about with Legate. I think that to wrap things up here, Legate Lanius is a very powerful commander that definitely pushes. This is a pushed power level uncommon creature. The fact that it doesn't sacrifice one of our creatures is remarkably lucky, because in the story, Legate Lanius wouldn't think twice about murdering, one of his subordinates with his, car bumper that he beat into a greatsword. He's a savage. He fucking crucifies people and stuff. So it's kind of interesting that they didn't make it so that we have to sacrifice something. It's just our opponents. So this is a big value swing. This is a 4-for-1. We get a creature. All of our opponents lose a creature. And we get to keep ours. And then it grows. It just gets bigger, right? And it's awesome. It brings a lot to Rakdos at a time where Rakdos is already getting a lot of really good cards. And I think the biggest challenges are going to be figuring out how we don't die to like pinging damage that's outside of combat, or just random combat damage, because we don't have a lot of life gain. We just have Gary basically and this Reckoner's Bargain. I would like to change that. The edict, the number of edicts might change. I think if we were to be cutting like anything, it might be like 2 edicts that then become 2 big life gain effects. Like maybe we cut 2 edicts and then add in like Crypt Incursion and Blood Tithe. We could also do Crypt Incursion and Siphon Soul. Siphon Soul is a smaller version of Blood Tithe. It's a little less efficient. Deals 2 damage to every player. We gain 6. Life. I am always looking for ways in black to have like bigger life gain effects. And there's not a ton of them. It's a lot of like little nickel and dimey stuff. Blood Tithe is about as big as it gets. Corrupt would be a big one. Corrupt is a really big headshot. We could play Creeping Bloodsucker as well. I think Creeping Bloodsucker would be good here, although it is on 2 mana, so it's like 2 mana is our mana rock slot. We could play Basilica Screecher as well. We could play... I don't love Crypt Incursion, just in general. It gains a lot of life, but the exiling of the creatures just doesn't really matter. Could play a card like Devour Flesh, instant speed that makes somebody sacrifice a creature and then they gain life. But we can also point it towards ourselves and sack our own commander, gain 5 to 8. I've seen all these cards like a zillion times, so it's always funny going back through them and realizing, yep, I do know all of these. Lembas would definitely be another good one to consider. Okiba Reckoner Raid is just one of the better ones because you make a 2/2 menace at the end of it. The Scorpion is also really good. 1 mana to drain. Like it's an 8-point life total differential on the Scorpion. You gain 2, everybody loses 2. That's 6. Plus 2 is 8. I think that's really strong. Radiant Fountain. Yeah, there's not a whole lot else that represents like a big gain of life. It's going to be mostly incremental. Yeah. Sylvok Lifestaff, although we're not a very creature dense deck, so that's kind of awkward. We don't want to have that and just have like one creature to put it on. Trespasser's Curse is another one. And we don't even have like Bloodseeker in the deck, but that's because we just have so much removal. Vampire Sovereign is another one to consider. You can always... Yeah. And Wedding Invitation is also kind of solid in this deck because we can give unblockable to our commander when he's really big. So yeah, that's the deck. I think this is going to be really sweet. You'll definitely be seeing me play this quite a bit. I'm very confident in this build strategy. I've done it before. And so we'll have to see how it goes. So without further ado, we are going to start to wrap things up here. I do want to take a moment here to thank all of the patrons who have joined and chosen to financially support the channel. So let me take a quick moment to thank all of you all who do that every month. We've got Yo Man Yo, Brendan Lewin, Joel Wong, HZ, Luke Sapp, Mark Margolis, Paul Walker, Neil Farwell, Alex Scott, Jared Bills, the PDH Pod, Eric Kozak, Adgan BBQ, Zach Mayer, Scooby Ziegler, Chris Rogers, William Tonis, Derek, Ian, and Noyark. So thank you all so much for your financial contributions. I really appreciate all of what you do for the channel. And if you too want to join the Common Connoisseurs exclusive section of the Discord, the supporters section, and get access to a bunch of awesome perks, support financially this content that you enjoy, you can go to patreon.com/Common Connoisseurs, which is down in the description below. And you can start your subscription for as little as $2 a month, which gains you access to a whole bunch of great things. So with that, we are gonna close things down. So thank you everybody for joining today. I hope you enjoyed this this build of Legate Lanius. I hope you've learned something a little bit about Rakdos and Control. And with that, Connoisseurs of Fine Common Cardboard, wherever you are in the multiverse, thank you so much for being here, and we'll catch you on the battlefield. Peace out, friends.